Real quick, I just wanted to share with you that From Scratch is an independent podcast that is not backed by any investors. If you do enjoy these types of inspirational stories and would like to support the podcast, I will leave a donation link somewhere above or below this video where you can make your donations discreetly and safely. If, on the other hand, you have a business and would like to advertise during one of the episodes, I have 3 types of sponsorship packages that basically fit any type of budget for your business. Any financial contribution is highly appreciated, and I cannot thank you enough for your continued support. But you don't have to donate in order to support the podcast. All you have to do is just simply subscribe and share it with your community so that these meaningful stories will reach a wider audience. Thank you for listening. Now let's go back to the episode. Welcome to From Scratch, the podcast where our guests share their journeys of success and failures. My name is Joko. I'll be your host, and today with me I have Dana. Now, if these stories are inspirational to you, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share them with somebody to inspire their day as well. Now, Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
In a few words, what do you do now? Where are you now?
I own Critical Grind Board Game Cafe.
Okay.
We started as an events company. We eventually opened our own brick and mortar. We are a coffee shop, a gaming space, a event space, a third space. We do pop-ups and we travel for events and we do all sorts of fun stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, where you grew up, the your family, society back then, social statuses, high school. Let's
Sure.
go down to the nitty gritty.
I didn't realize this was therapy. But no, from scratch, that makes sense. So I grew up in Lockport
Okay.
and lived there basically my whole life. We were, middle class, and went to Milne Grove, Kelvin Grove, elementary, junior high, Lockport High School. I graduated high school in 2007.
Okay.
So growing up there in the 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't really anything to do for adults.
It's a
Sure.
smaller community,
It
right?
was a much smaller town. They've seen so much more growth over there now. But growing up there wasn't anything for the kids to do, for the teens to do, for any.
Mm.
We hung out at Burger King, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Or sometimes we would go to the park, but even Delwood Park was a lot further than where I lived. Otherwise, we just ran the streets on our bikes. But there was a space called the Open Door Teen Coffee House.
Okay.
And it was a non-for-profit 501c3 space on Friday nights. The little building that they used was owned by the First Congregational Church, and it was Friday night hangout spot for teens.
Okay.
I first started going, a friend of mine in like 7th grade had brought me. Her dad's band was playing.
That is so cool.
Then I found out that they did karaoke nights once a month, and I loved singing. So I would go to the karaoke nights, and then they had bands, like high school bands there. Over from like 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I would be there just about every Friday night. And then come sophomore year, I ended up in a relationship with the son of the coordinator.
Okay. Of the same
of the
coffee.
of the
Oh,
coffee
wow.
house.
Okay.
We just called it coffee house.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up volunteering. So I was helping run concessions, and it got to the point where I was like, hey, we should really get more people here. Have you heard of MySpace?
Oh my God! It's during that time.
So I
Holy
created
smokes!
the social media and the
That is
website
crazy.
for the coffee house, and I made us our MySpace. I made us a tripod web page.
All the fancy
Oh
terminology back
yeah,
then,
I
right?
learned so much HTML. No, yeah. So I did a lot of the marketing. I made the flyers, and I did the concessions, and then I started booking the bands, and
So you got involved.
I got
fairly
heavily involved,
heavily, yeah.
starting in like sophomore and junior year of high school.
Wow.
And then even after that relationship ended, I was still like very heavily involved in the coffee house. I ended up DJing a couple of the dances.
Okay.
It wasn't my forte, but when
Jack of
push
all
comes to
trades right
shove,
there.
you know,
Yeah,
when
there
you
you
need
go.
someone to push the button and organize the set list from their LimeWire downloads, you got to do what you got to do.
That's hilarious.
As I was getting older, a few of us realized that a lot of the teens that were coming, the high schoolers, they weren't spending as much time inside the coffee house for the events. They were hanging out outside. They were hanging out in
Okay.
the parking lot. They were having their community with each other, not in the event, but just through conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's high school, so there's drama,
Oh, of course.
and all the drama was in the parking lot.
Of course.
And so a couple of us were like, okay, wait, there's a need here. Let's do something about it. So then a couple of us broke off and we started another nonprofit called YASO. It's Young Adults Speak Out, YASO. And we would meet on Saturdays. It was like every other Saturday. It was basically group therapy meets a pizza party.
Okay.
We would use the same space. The church let us use their area, and basically we had all of these chairs in a group circle.
Wow.
And when we first started, we had like boxes of stuffed animals in the middle of the circle.
Okay.
Because sharing personal things, especially a bunch of high schoolers on the like fringe of everything, it's vulnerable. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
So we had these little stuffed animals, these little plushy stuffies that you could, if you speak out and you share something, you could take a little stuffed animal home with you,
That
or
is so
something to
nice.
little cuddle while you're there, while you're hanging out. And we
Feel
talked
safe in a
about
way, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And we talked about everything. We talked about loss. We had several people lose close family members.
Okay.
We talked about eating disorders. We talked about bullying. We talked about self-harm,
Wow. Deep
self-mutilation,
conversations. You guys were going
suicide.
deep. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
we went deep, and
Wow.
we talked about teen pregnancy, and addictions, and we had guest speakers come in and share, like adults come in and share their stories about their journey and how they overcame whatever obstacles. Like some people would just go to coffee house, some people would just go to Yaso, some people went to both. I think those two organizations that I was so heavily involved in shaped everything later
Wow.
that I ended up wanting to do. We had an event called Welcome to the Real World, and it was like a talent show. There was an acoustic guitar player who did this heart-wrenching version of Outside by Stained. There was interpretive dance, there was monologues from plays, and there was a whole art gallery exhibit when you first walked in of
Wow.
photography and mixed media art and just and everything had a deep theme, and every performance, every item had a deeper, darker message, of like, this is our reality. On a lighter note, we hosted our own prom. Several members of our community, part of the LGBTQ community, and at that time they couldn't bring their partners to prom. They were told they couldn't buy tickets to prom at their high schools. So we'll do our own. And we
Yeah.
did. And it was a lot of fun.
If somebody were to meet you back then,
hmm
who would have they seen? Like, who would have they met?
I don't know. I have my own interpretation of who I was back then. And I don't think I've changed that much. Someone who just wants to be a part of things. I like being a part of it. I like being included. I like creating space and creating community and having people who may not have met or may not have been friends previously meet each other and be like, hey,
Right.
surprise, you guys have a lot more in common.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're getting real deep, doctor. uh,
Doctor.
I growing up in elementary school, grade school, junior high, I was bullied. I was not popular. I did not have a lot of friends. I could probably count on one hand, like the real good, true friends that I
Mm.
had back then. And one of them is still around
Oh, wow.
from grade school, from junior high. The rest, they're there. You know, there's a few that are still kind of around in the picture,
Mm-hmm.
acquaintances, we're
Mm-hmm.
Facebook friends, you know, happy
Right.
birthday.
Right.
But like the ones that I know to this day I can still call or I still see on a regular basis. There's like one. I don't know what it was. I was not well liked in grade school, you know. I was picked on, I was bullied, I was beaten up in the locker room,
Oh, damn.
and I got in trouble, you know. I was a troublemaker. I had freshman year, I had a couple teachers that absolutely hated me because I was in that rebellious, you know,
Mm.
my life sucks, you don't understand me, don't talk to me,
Right.
like phase.
Right.
And then when I found other people that felt that way too, I think that's what really started to shift my perspective. I'm like, hey, you're not alone, and
Wow.
neither is everybody else.
We all have dreams, right?
Yeah.
And at least I sometimes wonder, like, where did I get the inspiration? Like, where did this dream come from? Like, where did this desire to do this actually come from? And then you start digging deep in those memories, moments from your past
Hmm.
that you're like, oh.
So I had a theory for a little while that
Okay.
it was the games we played as children. Because I had a friend when we were kids, we were neighbors, lived 4 houses down, 3 houses down, depending on which one of us you ask. And she always wanted to play school.
School.
School. She always wanted to play school. She was the teacher, and she would
Okay.
write out whole sheets of math work and
Wow.
sentences, and like she would give me assignments, and we would be sitting there playing school.
Wow.
When we would play at my house, I wanted to play restaurant. I would make all these different things in my kitchen and serve them to her, and it was crazy. So I had another friend who I found out years later that when she was growing up, her and her cousins, she always wanted to play therapist. And they would
That
literally
is
bust out
wow.
their recording huge camcorder and have a therapy session. And she went into psychology. And my
Wow.
first friend, she's a preschool teacher. And I have a coffee shop. And
Look
so,
at that.
right, these games that we play as children, like they form way more,
Mm-hmm.
they're way more impressionable. And I think pay attention to what your kids are playing and
Yeah.
what they're playing pretend. And I think that's a lost art. All of the with the phones, the video games,
Mm-hmm.
the
The
I'm not
attention span is
this
so
it
short.
is it's so short, and people rely on screens so much more these days. So I think, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm against video games or you know
Everything has its pros and cons.
exactly, yeah, and everything in moderation.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, as you were playing coffee shop, having a restaurant and whatnot,
Yeah.
did you have any other dreams that you feel like you abandoned so you can live out that dream?
When I was little, people would ask, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And my answers were fashion designer
Okay.
or actress. I, at one point, really thought that I would go to Juilliard and study acting.
Okay.
And then sometime in high school, it was I wanted to open an old fashioned candy and soda shop.
Candy and soda.
Like the scene in Willy Wonka when they're at the beginning of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and the kids are all lined up in like the old fashioned candy store, and all the candies on the walls,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just filling up like that. But also the diner scene, sorry, the diner
That's good.
scene from Greece with the like old fashioned shakes and malts and sodas
Okay.
and like very, very 50s
Okay.
style. I was very, very into swing dance for a minute there.
That is
If it
so
wasn't
cool,
for my
though.
asthma, I would still swing dance all the time.
That is so cool. So
So,
what got in the way of you not pursuing that?
so the fashion designing I gave up on when I watched a fashion show. Uh,
Why? Too much?
my mind was so linear that I watched a fashion show. It was like Paris Fashion Week or something. I
Uh-huh.
watched a fashion show and I was like, that's ugly. Like, how is that fashion? What are they doing? Is that a lampshade? I don't know what they're wearing. I was like, if this is fashion, I want nothing to do with it.
Right.
And that was it. And it never occurred to me, hey, you could actually design the things that you like, and other people might also like those things.
Yeah.
It was, at the time, my brain was like, this is what people want. I'm not doing that.
It's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Thanks anyway. And then for acting, I tried to do theater in high school. I got into it a little bit in junior high, and then we lost the theater program. And then I did it in high school. One of those teachers who did not like me in high school was the theater director. So I had a very bad first impression with her, and we got off on the wrong foot, and there was no catching up. And so I didn't really get cast in many things in high school, but I joined community theater.
Hmm.
I worked with the Joliet Drama Guild. I worked with Bolingbrook Theater on the Hill,
Nice.
the Spotlight Theater out of Governor's State. And I loved performing and doing community theater. It was great when I was younger. It became very time consuming when I was working. You know,
Right.
I couldn't keep doing community theater and acting and still have two jobs
Right.
and, you know,
Support yourself
support
and
myself and everything else. So I was like, well, something's got to give. This is a great hobby. I realized I wasn't going to Juilliard when I didn't have the acting resume in high school.
hmm
I never really got a lead. I never didn't really have that. And I
right.
was like, well,
You dipped your toes in the water, so
exactly.
to
It's a
say.
fun
So
hobby,
yeah.
and I've told my family if I ever hear about auditions for Chicago, that's my dream show. So that's it. I'm tapping out for a couple months. I'm gonna go do the show, and I'll see you later. So
At what moment did you decide to go for your own business, so to say, like to pursue that?
I started working at 15. My first job was at an ice cream shop. And then I worked at a photography studio. And I did everything. I ended up doing everything there except taking the pictures.
Oh
I
wow.
was making the appointments. I was even editing some of the photos at some point. I was packaging, signing. While I was working there, I worked retail. I've worked in clothing stores. I've worked in coffee shops. I've worked at tech companies, and I've had so many different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I would go into a job, it would be, okay, what can I learn here to take with me to the
Interesting.
next thing? And at some point, I decided my goal was the coffee shop. I wanted a coffee shop. I grew up watching Gilmore Girls, and everybody hung out at Luke's Diner. I watched Friends, and everybody was at Central Perk. I watched Cheers, and everybody was at Cheers. At one point, I wanted a bar. You know, I liked bartending. I went to mixology classes,
Mhm.
and I liked bartending and serving, and that was a lot of fun. It was good money, paid my rent, but I didn't like the addiction part of it. I didn't like seeing so many people at the bar at 9 a.m. And it was like, I don't want to contribute to that. I do understand caffeine is an addiction. I
In a
have a caffeine
difference, and
addiction, but
yeah,
they
but
are different.
they are
And I think more community is formed over a cup of coffee and a
Mhm.
board game
Right.
than in a loud, noisy bar. At some point, it was like, no, I'm going to have a coffee shop. I'm going to have my own coffee shop one day. And any job that I went into, it was like, okay, what can I learn here? Am I here to learn something, or am I here to pay the bills?
That is an
Or is it
interesting
both?
approach. Yeah.
There were some times where I was working two jobs at a time, and this one was the job that was paying my bills,
Right.
and this was the job where I was learning more for my future. And I had a job where I was doing accounts payable, accounts receivable, bookkeeping, process documentation, which I have used so much in my in my business. Um, Skills that I never would have thought about
Mm.
or had. I managed a tattoo studio for 5 years and learned a lot about customer service and scheduling and marketing. I did a lot of the marketing there. I updated the website. I did newsletters. I did the social medias. I did all of that stuff at the tattoo shop. So I learned so much. And that owner would send me to classes for social media marketing courses and
Wow.
things like that. So I learned a lot at every place to take with me eventually. The games came later. It was always going to be a coffee shop, but the games came in 2014. My husband and I took our honeymoon we actually drove to Seattle, Olympia, Portland, and then drove home.
Okay.
But while we were in Portland, we found this random game store. We were just driving around. We were looking for something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And he's driving, and I look out the right, and I'm just like, Green Guardian Games? or Guardian Games? And he was like, okay, and turned around. I was like, well, I guess we're going there now. And we spent 8 hours that day
Oh, wow.
in this game store. We walked in, and it was this huge, it's bigger now. I haven't been back, but I've met people who work there through our circles and conventions and stuff.
Mm.
They've expanded. But when we first walked in, it was this huge space, and it was games, like stacks of bookshelves full of board games
Oh,
on one
wow.
side and miniatures on the other. And there was a huge like area in the middle full of cabinets with trading cards and a back section where they had 6 tables of kids playing role-playing games. And then in the back, they had another room that was after 8 p.m., 21 and over,
Interesting.
and they had like Blue Moon and
Right.
Mike's Hards. These days it's probably Truly's or something. But and then at night they had a taco truck pull up out front, and so people hanging out could
Yeah.
grab something to eat.
Yeah.
But we walk in, and we were looking for 2-player games. We're on our honeymoon, we're hanging out. Even back home, most of our games are better with more people. Our go-to game is a 3-player that we ended up having to come up with our own rules to be able to play with 2.
Okay.
And this gentleman is like, hold on a moment. And he takes us around, he shows us a few games, gives us some suggestions, and then has his little walkie, and he's like, I'm going to step off the floor and teach a game. And he sat down with us and taught us how to play these games. And we bought those games and some others and sat there for 8 hours, and we played these games.
Oh.
It was so great. It was such a unique experience
Mm-hmm.
because we'd been to game stores, but to have the experience of someone who knows how to play the game sit down and show you how to play the
Mm-hmm.
game was mind-boggling. Like, really? Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
We host game nights at our house all the time. We like teaching our friends new games and showing them new things. Let's do that.
Right.
The idea kind of formed from there. And then a few years later, we started as a pop-up event company. And we would take games to libraries, breweries, cafes, and employee engagement events with like internal companies and team building. And we would teach people how to play games and what these games are. And hey, you like this type of game? What do you like about it?
Right.
I love that. Great. Can I teach you this one? It's kind of similar, but it has a different mechanic, and it does this thing that's a little bit different, or it has this theme that's really fun. So getting people more interested in more of the hobby gaming became our hobby job,
Yeah.
like a little side hustle. It wasn't full time.
So at that point, you didn't have the coffee shop yet.
No, that was 2018.
So the idea for the board games came first.
So yeah, so it was
Interesting.
we came up with the name Critical Grind
Okay.
because one day we're going to have a coffee shop. One day we're going to have a brick and mortar.
Okay.
We wanted the name to fit later. So it's actually 2-parter. So Critical is a success, if you're playing like a role-playing game and you're rolling a d20 and you get a 20 on a 20-sided die, it is a critical success. So we wanted critical and then grind, obviously, coffee. But on the reverse, coffee is critical. And there is a game mechanic called grinding where you are doing a same repetitive thing to get the resources to then do more things later in the game. It's a
Interesting.
grind. Yeah, so Critical Grind started and it was always a dream. One day we'll get the cafe. One day we'll have a coffee shop. But for now we're doing the events and we're building up our name, we're building up
Mm-hmm.
our brand and our recognition. We're saving money and then we'll be able to do the cafe. Once we have a solid like business foundation, we'll
Right.
get loans. And then in 2020, we lost all of our contracts because no one was doing gaming events because everybody was closed.
COVID.
Yep. So then we put the company on hiatus, like there's nothing we can do. But we had 600 board games in our house
Wow.
at that point because everything was just being operated out of our house. We had about 600 board games, and we knew a lot of people who were at home not doing anything. So we started lending our games. We would drop off, porch pickup.
Right.
We couldn't open it to the public. We thought about it. We tried to figure it out, but we didn't have a way to secure any like card information in
Okay.
case someone didn't give us our game back. There was no security in that.
Mm.
It was more about someone just like keeping the game, which we were worried about. Like,
Did that ever happen?
no, because during the pandemic we only lent games to people we knew.
Okay.
which is why we didn't
Right,
publicize it
right,
and open it up.
right.
But 2021, things were starting to open up a little bit. A lot of the places that we had contracts still weren't doing public events really, and some of the employee engagement events that we had been doing, their teams were remote now. There wasn't really anybody in the offices to do that team building.
Right.
And then in December of 2021, my dad passed away. And he was a big supporter of the dream of the cafe. And he had just retired like 6 months prior and was like, well, when you get your cafe, I'll come work for you and I'll learn how to make these lattes and I'll hang out and we can make lattes all day and play chess. And our slogan for Critical Grind has always been from the beginning, life is short, play more games.
Interesting.
After my dad passed away, in a whirl of grief and impulsivity, my partner and I looked at each other and was like, well, what do you want to do? My dad had lived with us and we split the bills, we split everything. And we were to a point where it was like, what do you want to do? It's like, I am done working for other people. I want my cafe. It's time. It's past time. And so he was like, let's go. Let's do it. We'll figure it out. And so by February, we had signed a lease.
Wow.
9 months of unexpected construction and well, we knew we had to do construction, but there was more construction than we expected to have to do, and unexpected costs.
Like renovations
and
of the place and stuff like that.
there was a lot more. We didn't realize we would need to build a second bathroom because the one bathroom wasn't going to be enough based on the square footage for it being a food service space.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was.
So coffee shops are considered food service spaces?
Yeah.
Not drink, like not.
It's
well,
all encompassing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we had to build a second bathroom, which we weren't anticipating. We had to build a ceiling over our service area. And I was like, we have a roof. And they're like, well, it's, you have to have a Will County Health Inspection. Health Department requires a counter or a ceiling X number of feet over the service area. I'm like, okay, guess we have to build a ceiling. There was a lot more that we had to do that I wasn't expecting. So we had costs. We ended up losing a couple of contractors because we were waiting for funds to be able to, and They had other jobs, which I respect, but it just kept pushing our timeline further and further.
Mm-hmm.
And we were paying rent on a space that we weren't making any money on,
Right.
and like
But
hemorrhaging
you're
money for a
actually, yeah,
while.
spending money on it
It was
even more.
rough. But we eventually opened 9 months later in November of 2022.
Did you know what you were doing actually, or were you just like,
Not really. I'm still figuring it out. No, I did, but I didn't. It was one of those like, I know what needs to be done, but how do I do it? I know I need these certifications. I need these licenses. I need these permits. How do I get those? Who do I talk to? What are the micro ones? What do they need for me to supply? What do I need to go get for them to say yes, for me to do this, to have this? And it was a lot.
oh,
It was definitely a learning experience.
what did those like middle days look like? The days that pretty much nobody sees.
Our space started as a kickboxing studio.
Okay.
We got a agreement with our landlord where we would paint the space ourselves to save a little money on the rent or the deposit. So it was painting 2,200 square feet, 12, 14-foot ceilings. There was old tile that we couldn't keep. We had to get rid of it. And it was chipping up the tile and switching architects halfway through because the architect that we initially were working with refused to understand the concept of gender neutral bathrooms. Luckily, our landlord has an in-house architect. And so we talked to them and he helped us and gave us, the drawing for the plans that we needed. And it was planning, it was taste testing, it was figuring out the menu, it was ordering our espresso machine from Italy. It
Oh
was
wow.
coffee samples. There were the good things too. It was trying different roasters and finding suppliers, and it was the menu tasting, and what are we gonna serve? What equipment do we need? And it was networking. The cafe didn't open until November of 22, but in August I joined the chamber
Mm-hmm.
and started coming to chamber events and, getting people excited and making new friends and meeting new people and telling them about what was coming to Shorewood. And it was some marketing and social medias. And, there were days where I had nothing to post. Like, hey, we're still here.
Yeah.
One day we'll be open.
Mm.
I ended up doing random punny jokes from a Dungeons and Dragons joke book, and it was content and it was fine. But there were a lot of days where nothing happened because there were some days that I couldn't. I was down. I was
Yeah.
I was still grieving my dad. I was going to grief counseling. I did have a part-time job because like I still got bills I gotta pay while I'm trying to build this.
Mm-hmm.
We have a daughter, so I'm trying to spend time with my kid because
Mm.
as soon as this cafe opens, mommy's really busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It drug out a lot longer than I wanted it to, than it should have.
Halfway through it, did you feel like quitting? Like just abandoning it and be
Oh
like,
yeah.
you know what?
There
Screw
was
this.
there were a couple of times where I was just like, what is the point? Like, is this
Mm.
even gonna work? But I had to.
What kept you going?
I think it was my dad. Um, it was knowing that he wanted it for me. So my husband ended up taking out his 401k as part of our initial startup investment. My dad had left me his motorcycle, and I ended up selling it to pay for construction. My sister and I agreed to sell his Jeep, and we split that, and I took that part and put it toward construction. We maxed out credit cards. We ended up doing some crowdfunding for a while because like some unexpected stuff came up and we were like, we have nothing right now. And eventually it worked, but it was internally, it was my dad, and externally, it was my husband. It's sink or swim. We have to make this work or we shut down and we can't, and this is it. So I was like, well, if this is one shot, I gotta keep going and power through and make it work. Only way is through.
The only way you can make the pain go away is to keep fighting for what, you wanted.
Yeah.
I knew it. He knew it. We
Yeah.
knew it.
Yeah. It was gonna be a thing, so it's gotta be a thing.
Exactly. What does this moment currently mean to you? Like knowing now you have your coffee shop, you
Mhm.
have, your board games
Yes.
as well with that. What does all of that mean to you?
It means that there's a space for me, for anyone, for my family, my friends, my community to exist, knowing that I've created something that means so much to so many people. There was a point last year where all that doubt was weighing very heavily, and we were struggling financially like no other. I was about done. I was maybe a month from shutting down, figuring out how to sell anything I could to recoup any of the debt that we'd accumulated personally. And after talking to a couple of close friends, I decided to give it one more go. And we did one more little crowdfunding push, which gamers, they are so familiar with crowdfunding because there's so many board games that get published because of crowdfunding
Mm-hmm.
that, some of them didn't even bat an eye. But it was also our community came together and they were like, no, Critical Grind can't leave. Critical Grind needs to stay. I don't know how, not to get political, but in November it was a rough time for a lot of my community at the cafe. We have a very inclusive environment. We are LGBTQ forward.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in and you see no less than 3 pride flags. Um, as a bisexual business owner, I have no problem telling people we are a very friendly space to everyone, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of our community was really scared around that time. And I was like, they were like, we need you. We need Critical Grind to exist because spaces are going to be disappearing. And we need a space where we can feel safe. And I was like, cool. I love you all. Thank you so much. Please put your money where your mouth is because we are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And we raised enough money to pay our back rent and get ahead of things. And with that call to action, that plead for help, we ended up getting investors.
Wow.
A local entertainment company called Liquid Courage Entertainment ended up investing in Critical Grind, and now they're our partners.
Wow.
And through that partnership, we've been able to grow and do more and have more events for
That
everyone.
is
And
amazing.
yeah,
Oh my
so it was
goodness.
that vulnerability
Yeah.
that really helped for more connection and more community.
Every single one of my guests that we've talked so far, we stress the importance of being vulnerable as a business owner.
Yeah.
That's what connects you to the community. It's not your services, your products, your like people connect with you,
Hmm.
and then it's the products and the services that you offer and that you provide.
It's hard, it's scary, it's
Yeah.
opening yourself up for
Yeah.
judgment.
Yes.
And there were days I would be up all night breaking the one rule of the internet, reading the comment section.
Oh boy.
And like it was rough.
Yeah.
Like as a growing business, we've made changes that have upset people. For the first year we were open, we didn't charge people to play games.
Mm-hmm.
You come in, buy something, hang out as much as you want. free play, free space,
Right.
whatever. Just buy something.
Right.
Just support the cafe.
Right.
It had gotten to the point where we'd had people, that would buy a soda for $2.50
That
and
doesn't pay
sit
rent.
there for 6, 8 hours, and either I'm working 80, 90 hours a week by myself, or if I'm staffing, I got to pay for staff to be there. I
Mm-hmm.
still have rent. I still have,
Mm-hmm.
utilities and everything else. So I was like, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to a convention. My partner and I, Sean, we went to a convention, and we talked to a bunch of board game cafe owners, and they were like, well, what do you charge to play?
Hmm.
We don't. I'm like, do it. Stop not doing it.
Yeah.
Because every board game cafe charges you to play. Game stores and board game cafes are different. They are different business models. And not a lot of people understand that. Game stores survive on your retail purchases.
Mm-hmm.
Our game cafe survives on the pay to play and the cafe purchases. We don't have a lot of retail for sale. If you see a game you like, if we have it, excellent. We will sell that to you.
Right.
If it's a new game that's coming out, let us know. We'll order it.
Right.
We can order a game for you.
Right.
If our distributor has it, absolutely. Happy to order for you. But I'll send them to other game stores. Be like, you know what? We don't have that. Have you tried Wandering Dragon? Have you tried Paper or Plastic? You're going down south?
Yeah.
Excellent. Our friends at Goblin Gaming in Ottawa, go check them
Absolutely.
out. Like, I want there to be more of a collaborative mindset in the gaming hobby space than competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And in some forms, there are in the broader scope of things, like at the gaming conventions, you can see that mentality. But when it's localized,
It's
a
different.
lot of us see each other as competition, and I would much rather it be collaborative.
Mm-hmm. Is this what you had imagined it would feel like, being successful? What is success to you?
What is success to me? I feel good where we're at now. I have a few more goals, personally for the cafe. My partner Sean has more goals. There's always little things, oh, we could do this better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can, this is another thing that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Big scheme of things, at the beginning of the year, one of my goals, at least a 3-year plan, was to get a coffee truck, and be able to do mobile coffee at festivals and
Interesting.
pop-ups and things like that. And while that is still a plan, we're looking a little smaller rather than doing a whole truck to highlight the cafe side of things too, because a lot of the events we do, it's about the board games.
Right.
Stress the environment, the non-gaming events. We
Yes.
do things. If you're not a gamer, cool. Do you crochet? Come out for our crafter meetups on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
We have chess club, we have homeschool meetups. We do homeschool gaming on Thursdays where kids learn so much through play. And we have a whole educational section of board games
Well,
where you're learning things while you're playing. There's things you're learning about animals. We have math games, we have science games, we have geography games. But you also learn a lot with a collaborative game,
mm-hmm.
with a dexterity game, with a strategy game. And so you can learn through play very easily. And, so we're trying to build more of the homeschool groups. We're
Okay.
trying to build more co-working. We have so much space for people to come hang out and work remote. Just being able to promote more of the things that we do to then be able to do more things.
If your 7, 10-year-old self would
Okay.
come in the room, what would you tell her?
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give my younger self that I'm trying to instill in my own daughter who's 12, find your worth and your value in yourself rather than what people tell you it is.
On that note, first, what's the best advice you've received? And the second, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that is, starting to start their own, so to say, cafe or board game or any kind of business, so to say?
Set goals that you don't know for sure you can accomplish, but you think you can. If you worked, you think you can make it happen. And then set goals a little higher than that.
Interesting.
There's that old adage, if you shoot for the moon, you'll land among the
Right,
stars.
right.
And that's super tacky and cheesy, but there's value in that
Mm-hmm.
too, because it's not entirely incorrect. If you aim really high, but you understand that if you don't reach that goal, it's not a failure. You've still done something incredible. Failure is not even trying.
Yeah.
You fail 100% of the things you don't do. I guess as for advice for anybody else starting a small business, find your niche and your passion and what you want to be doing every day, and find out what your community needs. Like, you'll have your target audience. Like, who are you trying to bring in? Who is your target demographic? What can you do for them? What kind of space do they need? What kind of menu options do they need? What kind of accommodations can you provide?
Mm-hmm.
And
Fill that gap.
and fill the gap.
Where can people find your shop and more about you?
Critical Grind Board Game Cafe is in Shorewood. We are on Black and 59 behind the Southeast Speedway. Digitally, you can find us. We have our website, criticalgrind.com. We're on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, although sometimes I forget to post there.
What is Blue Sky? I've never heard of that.
Blue Sky is the answer to all of the people who got really mad at Mark Zuckerberg and left Facebook and
Really?
Instagram. Yeah.
That's the first time I'm hearing about Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people left Facebook and Instagram late last year, early this year. So,
Interesting. I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you, Dana.
I've stepped out of my comfort zone today with the camera and everything. My therapist is going to be so proud.
There you
My
go.
real one.
Yeah, I'm like a secondary. Well, if Dana's story inspired you, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, so you don't miss any future episodes that we post here. But also share it with somebody so you can inspire their day. Dana, again, thank you for coming on here.
Thank you.
And I will see everybody in the next episode.